Okay, this is Brandon with the Charter Authority, joined here by my colleague Mary. Thank you for joining us for our May edition of our Assessment and Accountability Updates call. We are recording this, so we will post the recording and the PowerPoint presentation onto our Canvas page. We'll send you an email with the link to that either probably tomorrow or the day after. So here's the introductions. There's just our mission statement and the team members. Selchik, our supervisor, Brandon, that's me, and then Mary. So just a reminder, I'm the primary contact for accountability. Mary is the primary for assessment, but we are sort of working together on a lot of that stuff. So here's the agenda for today. First, we'll talk a little bit about assessment, specific assessment information, timelines, etc. We'll talk about some accountability. We'll go into a little bit more detail, depending on time, on some of those. There's some other updates, and then we'll go into resources. I'm going to pass it over to Mary for the assessment.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mary here. As Brandon mentioned, we each have our own respective areas, but we tend to work together, which is a good collaborative team. So thank you. Congratulations to everyone. You're almost to the finish line of assessments. There's still one more that's still open, but that would be the MAP assessment. But you've made it through SPAC and NA, and just a couple other things to tidy up. But this is just a reminder of some of the things we've already gone through this year and trying to give you a general heads up for next year. Where we are now with, and just some wrap up with WIDA. So you should have access online for the reports and data files. You'll get those printed roughly in the mail for you, roughly around 5/24. We are currently in the midst of a post-reporting data validation. Bravo, gold star to those that have sort of taken care of a lot of this in the pre-reporting data validation. So gold star there. That's till the 28th. So I believe that would be next Tuesday. Then we have that updated data is going to be posted by 6/11, and then you've got a couple of reports coming from the alternate access in the fall, online and printed.
Yeah, and just notice that I think that's different that this year. The alternate data or reports or results were typically available around this time as well, but it seems like they've pushed that out to the fall this year.
Yeah, so a couple of differences. If you've not finished your validation, this is the final opportunity. The window does not get extended. Please take advantage. You do have the rest of the week. NA assessments. Also another data cleanup. That closes tomorrow night, roughly, I would say 7 local, probably a good guesstimate. General data cleanup that you did with the SPAC and Science. There is a detailed data validation guidance attached to the Epicenter task if needed. It is the same PowerPoint that you used for SPAC and Science, roughly the same information. Please get that done. There will not be an opportunity to do that after the 23rd. I know I had some folks go, oops, I missed it. Please get that done. Okay. Actually, yeah. So a couple of key reporting dates. We've already passed May 16th. That's our wonderful date for the return of secure materials to DRC for Smarter and Science. The NA, those materials need to be returned to DRC by May 31st. A lot of these are also repetitive, so I'm going to kind of clump them together. District student data files for all 3 should be posted in Insight by June 14th. So you can use those. This is just the general data from DRC. There is a note at the bottom that I'll get to. You have student and roster reports posted by August 7th. And then you can have those printed. Those are going to be printed and delivered to you by August 21st. So a lot of this data provided by DRC does not, it's going to have some calculations by NDE. That is more for your information, for star ratings and for including growth. NDE is going to use the data provided, and that's going to be available mid to late July. We are going to post these to Bighorn for schools when they are available, but it never hurts to go ahead and look at your data once it's available, kind of hit the ground running, if you will, and make some general game plans. Brandon, did I miss anything? Cool. The map. Okay. So this window has been open for a while. This is the last assessment. If you don't have to worry about this, great. There are some that still need to do the map testing. You've heard this message from me before, and you've heard it from Brandon. The testing windows are what they are. They are not extended. We do get progress reports of who is testing and who has not completed. So that means you might get an email. Hopefully not. That means you've done what you've needed to do. And the testing window closes May 31st. I believe close of business is 5 p.m. roughly is general thumb. And one more thing, the ACT, there is that data validation, that future note. It is coming up. It's typically run by the NDE in late June, early July. Once again, we'll notify you when the process is open so you can complete the data validation. Just be mindful. I understand it's summer. It's going to be great. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to take a break. Please be mindful of your emails. You might get one, and just be aware of those time frames. And I think that was it. So I'm going to pass it along to Brandon because he's got even more fun things and a lot of data collections that are coming. So take it away.
Thank you, Mary. So fortunately, the assessment season is over generally, but unfortunately, that means the data collection season is now starting. There's a couple items here due in mid-June. We bumped those dates up a little bit because NDE wants those like mid to late June, and we need to get all the school files and aggregate them, provide them to NDE. So we need to collect those a little bit earlier. So I think everybody should be done with school by that point, because these files should not be run until school is over for your school. If you do have any issues with the due dates, there might be a little bit of flexibility there. Like if your school year hasn't ended, that type of thing, let us know and we can figure that out. So the first one is chronic absenteeism data collection. There is an epicenter task set up. There's detailed guidance on that, which I think time permitting, we could go a little bit into in a minute here. And then the second one is the NSPF 8th, 9th grade credits and academic learning plans data collection. That's also due on June 14th. So there's also an epicenter task. That one applies to schools with grades 6, 7, 8, or 9. And then there's detailed guidance there too. So let me see if I can, I'm going to pull up the detailed guidance on chronic absenteeism. Hope. Because there's a lot of information in here. We updated this guidance for this year, and we hope it is useful when you're trying to pull these data. So this is a report you can pull out of Infinite Campus. Like I said, we do aggregate all those data from all schools. We submit one file. So we kind of need files to be in on time so that it doesn't hold up all the other schools from being submitted to ND as well. So if we don't receive a file by the deadline and you haven't notified us that you need an extension or such, we're going to run it out of IC, the report. We're going to submit it as is, and then we can't guarantee data accuracy in those cases. Just a reminder here, because we do get a lot of questions about this chronic absenteeism data collection. The NDE uses these data for multiple purposes. They use it for the NSPF star ratings. They use it for Nevada Report Card, which is separate reporting from the NSPF, and they also use it for federal reporting. So there's a lot of information in there that NDE uses, which is why you see students that were enrolled at your charter at any point during the school year. We get a lot of questions about like, oh, the NSPF only requires students to be included if they were enrolled 91 or more days. Why are students in here that are enrolled 15 days? They're there because NDE uses it for multiple purposes. So for the star ratings, yes, students have to be enrolled 91 days or more to be included in the star rating. But for other state and federal reporting, students are included if they're enrolled 10 plus days. So that's why you see all those students in there, and why we're not calling this the NSPF chronic absenteeism data collection, because it's for a bunch of purposes. So I'm sure many of you are aware where to find this report. It's under NV State Reporting in Infinite Campus. And this is some guidance on how to run the report, just how to put the date in. NDE has advised only including certain enrollment start statuses, those being E1 and R2. and you got to run it for the correct calendar and the correct year, etc. You might get an error if you have multiple campuses or multiple calendars under one charter. So there's just some guidance here on how to switch it to filter by calendar, change the year, that type of thing. So there is some additional information here about what the file looks like when it's output. You do want to look at that effective date, make sure it is on or after the charter school's last day of school. Make sure that the enrollment start statuses in number 2 here are only E1 and R2. And you can verify all the demographics. That's being pulled directly from Infinite Campus databases and such, so it should be correct. But if you do see any issues, you need to make the update in Infinite Campus and then rerun the report. There are some other fields in here that have recently been added in the past couple years because of the differences between NSPF reporting of chronic absenteeism and what absences are included and what are not versus federal reporting. So there is that days enrolled field that is used for that for different purposes. Like I said, if days enrolled is greater than 10, that's students included in federal reporting. If it's greater than or equal to 91, then they're included in the NSPF, and that corresponds to that year in school, or yes equals 1 for the NSPF. Then there are a bunch of fields with counts of days absent and percent absent and whether the student is chronically absent or not. So there are EdFacts fields. You can see they all start with EdFacts, columns S through U here. And then there are NV state days, NV state columns. So those EdFacts fields are used for federal reporting and include all absences. And then the NV state fields are used for the NSPF star ratings, and they exclude MDP and REL coded absences. So this is something we've talked about previously, where certain absences get excluded from the star ratings because of legislation. And then if the chronic absence, if the rate is greater than 10% or more, that's when they'll show a yes in those chronic absent indicator columns. There are similar fields. I'm not really clear on what these are used for, but they're similar to the EdFacts fields. And then there's other fields related to district scheduled days and enrolled, which doesn't really work for the SPCSA, so you can just kind of ignore those. There's some guidance here. I'm not going to go into detail about how chronic absenteeism is calculated for a certain student, how that rate is arrived at, and what the indicator looks like, chronic absent yes or no. And there's also guidance on how to calculate chronic absenteeism rate for your school. Because these are all good things to do before you submit your data. Again, there's the reminder on the MDP and REL codes. So if your students have doctor's notes, MDP codes should be used. And if students are absent due to a religious holiday, you can use an REL attendance code. Up to 5 are excluded for a student in the NSPF. And then if you do make any changes, you want to make sure you make any changes to attendance codes, you make sure you want to run that attendance aggregation refresh tool for Infinite Campus. So here are a few things to just check before you submit this to the SPCSA and Epicenter, your chronic absenteeism file. Just check for reasonableness, calculate your chronic absenteeism rate for the school or for your schools. And if the rate doesn't seem correct, like if you have 0% of students chronically absent or 100% are chronically absent or even 95% of them, and it just doesn't seem right, like there are a few things to try. Make sure your attendance codes are set up properly and mapped. Another thing you should check is that those MDP and REL coded absences are being excluded from the NSPF days absent, the NV state days. So you should see differences in counts if a student has MDP codes on their record. So for example, this first student in the row here had 13 days absent for federal reporting, but only 6 days absent for state reporting, which is for the NSPF. So they probably had 7 MDP coded absences in there that are being thrown out of the calculation for the star ratings, star ratings chronic absenteeism. Another thing, if report seems off, please make sure absences are marked with an attendance code. We've seen a lot of attendance in the past where maybe the teacher marked the student absent, but an attendance code was never put in by attendance clerk or registrar, whoever at your school might be in charge of that. So please put in those attendance codes. If you've kind of not put those in all year long, there is a script that we provided in this link where you can, and directions on how to do that, how you can mark absences with an unverified code. And again, if you change anything with attendance codes, you need to run that refreshed. So that's it on chronic. So let me stop sharing that one. And then the next thing we were going to discuss is the credits and academic learning plans. So let me try to pull that one up here. Very similar information, similar process. So again, schools that are required for this, if you have grade 6, 7, 8, or 9, any one of those, at least one of those, like even if you're just grade 6, you still have to run this and submit it to us. NDE does use these data in the middle school and high school NSPF star ratings, so it's important to ensure these are accurate. So for the academic learning plans, that's worth 2 points, and it's just the number of students with the plan divided by the number of grade 6, 7, 8 students. Sorry, it should be the number of grade 6, 7, 8 students with the plan over the total number of grade 6, 7, 8 students. And then there's the 8th grade credit requirements. There's just some information here about what that means and what you need to do to meet, what a student needs to do to meet that requirement. And then there's the 9th grade credit requirement. So this is all collected in that one file. Same, there's some requirements there, 5 credits for promotion to 10th grade. So here's where the report is. I'm sure most of you know that already. This is what the report setup looks like. Again, you want to make sure the date is the last day of school. I believe it has to be the last day. There's some quirk here where if you don't run it if you run it for the day after the last day, it gives you a blank report or something. So that troubleshooting there if you need that. Again, only select E1 and R2 statuses. Please select the grades that your school has for 6, 7, 8, or 9. I don't know why they allow you to select other grades, but they do, and sometimes we get files with K through 12 students in there. So there's that. Academic learning plans, if you do keep them in Infinite Campus and you're not sure where, you can select both. I think there's an option for flags and maybe programs as well. So when the file outputs, same thing as chronic, you just want to verify the demographics. And there's very similar fields about like days enrolled and such. That again is used by NDE to count students in the star rating. So this one, if the students enrolled 91 or more days, they're included in the YIS measure. Or sorry, they're included in the NSPF. I think, I'm trying to remember, I think I'd have to check. I think the 8th grade credit requirements also includes YIS. Don't remember off the top of my head. All right, so moving to the important columns here is the ALP met. So this is, did the student have an academic learning plan or not? And this is for grades 6, 7, and 8 students. If you don't have plans in Infinite Campus, and note that plans don't have to be in Infinite Campus, they could be paper records. And if you don't have it in IC, it's going to all just pull no. And if they don't pull correctly, you can just manually update the field to Y as appropriate before you submit the file to us. I think if you pull this if you have grade 6 through 9, it still marks this field for grade 9 students, but it's not needed. So you can delete it before you submit it, or we'll just delete it when we get the file from you later. Grade 8 credit requirements. It pulls yes for all grade 8 students that met the credit requirements that were outlined earlier. If SCED codes aren't fully set up in your Infinite Campus, this is not going to pull correctly, and you're going to need to manually mark students. And the same goes for this field. It just pulls it for all students other than 8th grade as well, so you can delete that for non-8th grade students. If your 8th grade data don't pull correctly, you might be able to manually check data your data here. I'm not sure. This also might be linked to sched code, so not sure, but this is a potential option if you do have to do it manually. The last thing is the grade 9 credit requirements. This pulls yes for all grade 9 students that earn 5 or more credits by the end of their 9th grade year. If it doesn't pull correctly, again, just manually update this before you submit it to us. And here's a few data checks to do before you submit it to us. Please only include grades 6 through 9. Like I've said previously, we receive reports that include all grade levels. Verify the count of students by grade in your files is approximately accurate. Like if you have 8th graders and they're not in the report, or if you have 58th graders and the report's showing 200, these are all problems. Maybe you included multiple calendars, that type of thing. Also check for reasonableness of rates, calculate your ALP rate, your credit rates, and if they don't seem correct, like if you get 0% of students have academic learning plans when you know every student has one, please update the report manually if you need to, and verify it's pulling correctly otherwise. And if you're submitting one file with multiple schools, which is totally fine, please make sure all the schools are in the file. That's it for that. So that's a little bit more detailed guidance since those deadlines are coming up relatively soon. The other pieces I think we can kind of breeze through for the moment and maybe talk about later. I get back to this. Of course, it doesn't give me the option. All right, so we were here. So the first two are what we talked about in a little bit more detail, the chronic absenteeism and the NSPF 8th grade, 9th grade credits and academic learning plans. The other item due in about 5 weeks or so is the annual Nevada report card phase 2 and 3 data collection. So thank you all for getting the phase 1 in. We've submitted most of those data to the NDE at this point with no major issues. A few issues here and there that we just had to clean up with schools before submitting, but thank you for that. So this is the next phase. We updated tasks in Epicenter to collect these information or this information. And again, please don't submit it until the school year is over because a lot of this depends on as of the last data as of the last day of school. So first is there's a survey that you've all seen before, seen in previous years if you've been with us previously. So that's student transiency, subs, professional development funding, and then there's all the narratives about your mission and highlights and goals, etc. Then there's a separate task for, and I will note that this year we updated the task to be separate. I think previously it was all in one, and we would get like one piece of something and not other pieces. So now they're all separate tasks. So hopefully that helps you organize and us organize better as well and monitor. So another piece is the retention credit deficiency file. So here you just have to mark whether a student in K-8. So basically you get a base list of your students. We've uploaded those to the tasks already specific to your school. And you'll have to mark for each student K through 8 were they retained or not as of the end of the 23-24 school year. And then for all grade 9 to 12 students, were they credit deficient as of the end of the school year? And we provided in there as well some guidance that talks about the requirements. So if a student's credit deficient at the end of grade 9, what does that mean? How many credits? That type of thing. There's also the discipline file that has been collected in prior years as well. So that's disaggregated discipline, all suspensions, expulsions by certain possession of controlled substances, that type of thing by population, race, ethnicity. Not a fun file, but hopefully relatively straightforward. And then there may be a truancy file this year that is new. I think it was collected maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, and it kind of fell off the radar with NDE. I'm not sure why they weren't collecting it, but they might be collecting again. We'll let you know about that and set up a task if needed. And then the last couple items that we know of, at least at this point, is at the end of June, there will also be the NSPF College and Career Ready, or CCR, data collection. This is for schools with generally with 12th graders and whether they participated in or completed with definitions for both of those participation completion definitions in AP, CTE, dual credit, that type of thing. And that's also part of the star rating system. If you, I think we heard from one school or a couple schools about like this deadline is a little bit early if you do get late arriving AP scores, which may not arrive until middle of July. So if you do need an extension, let us know and we can try to work with you on that. Let us know via email, please. And then the last thing is the annual NDE CTE data career technical ed data collections, work-based learning, industry recognized credentials. Again, this is not new unless you are new to working in this area. Moving past accountability, other updates, we talked about this already. Certain IC products are ending. If you do want to continue that, you do have to unfortunately pay for it now, and you can contact Infinite Campus if you need to. Summer EBT, electronic benefit transfer. We haven't gotten any new updates on this. This is from last month as well, same update from NDE, but they're going to do this again. Basically, you'll just have to validate a file of your a list of your students and say, yes, they're eligible for electronic benefits basically money for food and such, that students that have FRL eligibility. There are resources. That's the Canvas page at the top that we'll post our recording to. And we have some other orientations and trainings, which we'll do again in early fall for our annual trainings. There's our contact info, and we still made it with 3 minutes to spare. So sorry about all the information now. You kind of got a lot of information from Mary in the last few months about assessments, and now you're getting a lot of information from me about data collection. So sorry about that, but hopefully it'll help you get everything done accurately and on time, and we're happy to take any questions. All right, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I'm going to stop the recording. I'm happy to, I think Mary and I are both happy to stay on the call for a few more minutes in case anyone has very specific questions. But thank you for joining us, and we hope this helped. And good luck finishing up the school year if you haven't already.